Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Trident's Marketing Communications Manager, Daniel Sloan, and we're excited to be bringing you today's Culture of Research and Education webinar called Virtual Leadership from Theoretical and Applied Perspectives. The core webinar series is designed to provide faculty, students, and alumni an opportunity to share their research and scholarship with the Trident community. By fostering a culture of professional development and idea exchange, participants will have access to a valuable forum for lifelong learning. This university-wide effort is coordinated by Trident's Doctoral Studies Directors. Just a few notes before we begin today's session. You're welcome to ask questions, share comments, share your experiences at any time. You can do that by going to the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Go about halfway down. You'll see a question box. Just type your question in there. Unfortunately, everyone's muted, so we can't accept questions that way, and try to avoid using the raise your hand function because it makes it very difficult for us to communicate with you that way. So any comments, any questions, drop in that question box, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. We will be recording today's webinar, and all attendees will receive a link to the webinar and a copy of the slides by early next week. And now let me introduce today's host. We'll be joined by Dr. Indira Guzman, who's the Doctoral Studies Director in the Glenn R. Jones College of Business and Professor of IT Management. She's been a faculty member and dissertation mentor at Trident since 2006. Her research has been published in over 50 academic outlets. And today's presenter is Dr. George Belsom. He's an adjunct professor in the Glenn R. Jones College of Business Administration and a professor of IT management. He has been a faculty member and dissertation mentor at Trident since 2019. He has over 30 years of leadership and management experience with the Air Force and DoD. While serving in the Air Force, he provided oversight, direction, and leadership as Dean of the Leadership School, and he's currently a program manager for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. We're excited to have both of you here today to discuss this important and very relevant topic. So I'm going to hand the reins off to Dr. Guzman, who's going to start off today's webinar. So take it away, Dr. Guzman.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for your introduction and for helping us organize this panel. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar entitled Virtual Leadership from Theoretical and Applied Perspectives. As Daniel discussed, these core webinars are designed to provide faculty, students, and alumni an opportunity to share their research and scholarship with the Trident community. Well, today we will discuss the research conducted by Dr. George Belsom as part of his Ph.D. dissertation in the Ph.D. program in Business Administration. He started the program around 2012 and graduated at the end of 2018. And he has been working and publishing his research in different outlets. As a result of his research, he already has his paper accepted for a presentation at the 2020 European Academic of Management Conference, and he's currently working is in the process of publishing this work in an academic journal. And I want to thank Dr. Belsom for agreeing to present his research, to share his experience with all of us and discuss this. So we all appreciate your questions, comments, suggestions. So thank you to the audience for participating. And I also want to thank the committee members of the dissertation, Dr. Belsom. The committee chair is Dr. Josh Shackman, who serves as the dissertation chair, and Dr. Jose Angeles and Ann Powell, who served as committee members. So again, I want to thank all the audience here today. And something important is that, again, this dissertation was published already in ProQuest, but you will see how in this presentation, Dr. Belsom will discuss the research in his dissertation and how he's moving into the next steps. The dissertation was entitled The Impact of a Virtual Leader's Communication Style on Virtual Team Performance. So you see by these words, how this topic is important. I mean, and it's relevant, especially today. I myself have been working remotely for over two years now, and I saw how things have changed. And so the question is working remotely the new normal? Well, we have seen, especially recently because of the coronavirus pandemic, that many companies have been forced to move and embrace the work from home solutions, different solutions, and for some of these companies, that has been a practice, but for many, they have moved to work remotely because of the pandemic. And at this point, several small and big companies are changing their practices, and these are some examples. For example, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg said that as many as 50% of Facebook employees could be working remotely within the next 5 to 10 years. And some of the reasons mentioned by Zuckerberg are satisfying employee desires. More employees are asking for that, and also B, an effort to create more broad-based economic prosperity. So this has to do with allowing people to work from different communities, from different places, from different backgrounds, and obviously adding different perspectives to the work done. Another big company is Twitter, that also said that their experience of working from home for the past several months has done well, and now they are also moving into that kind of environment. And for many of them, it's going to be forever. And in general, according to a global workplace analytics study, 20 to 30% of the workplace will be working from home multiple days a week by the end of 2021 in a permanent mode. So in today's competitive business environment, virtual work settings present a growing challenge for rapid solutions of organizations' complex problems. So why this topic is important for us, in this kind of context at the university? Well, based on the literature, and you will see the work of Dr. Belsom in his literature review and research, these are some of the issues that are coming up and are worth considering when analyzing this topic. So first, we have increased demand for work from home from employees, and that again has to do with more employees wanting to work from home. There's a reduced fear about work from home among managers and executives, because there's been a lot of fear or of lack of performance, a fear of not getting the job done. But again, now with this experience, that fear has been reduced. There's an increased awareness of cost savings opportunities in work from home. People could see the savings by not having to commute, money savings, and obviously energy savings. There's an increased awareness of the people impact of work from home on sustainability, and actually a not reduction of productivity in the time savings, and then the reduced business travel. And then another interesting topic is that millennials are the largest generation in the workforce, and they are challenging the 40-hour work week in pursuit of balance and flexibility. And finally, you see how employees and managers need to communicate differently. And this is going to be the main focus of today's discussion. Who should be interested in this topic? Well, leading a team, a virtual team, is not the same as doing that in the face-to-face environment. It's a greater challenge to lead such teams. Almost every organization of these kind of companies involved to work in a virtual environment, they see that there are differences, and it's not difficult to set up the virtual the infrastructure. Right now, we as long as you have internet, you have the software, you have computers, that is easy. But how about the actual leadership style, the leadership practices that are more productive and more relevant. And that's the main focus of this conversation and in this dissertation, that it's relevant, again, not only for small organizations, but also for large organizations. And it's very relevant for academia, business, government, because we need to discuss the work of the virtual teams and what are the best practices, what kind of training is appropriate, and things like that. So let's invite Dr. Belsom to discuss his dissertation, his research, and we are going to open up, as I said at the end, for questions and suggestions. Thank you, Dr. Belsom.
Thank you, Dr. Guzman. Before we get started, I'd like to give a little overview of my virtual team experience. I've spent the last 5.5 years on a virtual team, and I've experienced the entire gambit of leadership in this virtual team. It was as if I actually was able to live my dissertation. I had the opportunity to see how a virtual leader, using the tenets, dimensions of virtual leader communication style to impact productivity, do it positively. And then I had the opportunity or the learning experience to see how not to do it. So I've dealt with my team. My team works in the East Coast, and I'm here in St. Louis. And then I have a teammate in Ohio. So it's a fairly spread out team, and most of our customers are on the East Coast, St. Louis, and then we have worldwide customers as well. So I've got a pretty good experience in the virtual team. So what are virtual leaders? So a virtual leader is an individual who inspires, encourages, and enables others to contribute towards the organizational achievement and accomplishment of a goal through the use of IT with and without face-to-face or interaction. The virtual team is a prime example of how IT adapted to a changing landscape and capitalized on resources that were once not available. Distinctive features of virtual team include their overarching and at times singular reliance on IT to communicate with each other and across traditional boundaries. With the continued advances in IT and communications, virtual teams provide organizations the capability to be flexible as the work requirement grows or declines without the added overhead of traditional face-to-face teams. Having the ability to use strategic resources worldwide, which were once only available in a specific geographical location, can give organizations that competitive edge. So the role of leaders in virtual work. With a new leadership environment comes new leadership challenges. Leadership in a virtual team takes on a new meaning, contends with an entirely new set of problems, such as physical, cultural, and temporal dispersions. This requires a new way of thinking and a new approach. With a traditional team, face-to-face communication allows leaders to deliver their message more effectively to their subordinates. Face-to-face communication allows for nonverbal and paraverbal cues to be easily understood or received. In a virtual environment, leaders must lead differently. They build trust differently, and they make decisions individually. Other limitations may include delay in receiving communication in a virtual context, or a lack of mutual understanding and uneven information flows between virtual team members. With IT, virtual team leaders have access to much more information, which changes the very nature of leadership. More demands are being placed on a leader at a much faster pace, and leaders are expected to react and respond to those demands much quicker. So a virtual leader, what is a virtual leader? A virtual leader is an individual who inspires, encourages, and enables others to contribute toward the organizational achievement and accomplishment of a goal through IT and without face-to-face interaction. Virtual leaders use their role in a virtual team as an avenue to foster communication and creative thinking to complete a mission or a task. What does virtual leader do? He's a motivator. He provides the structure, clear goals, functions, expectations for the mission and vision. He's the social facilitator of the virtual team and plays the essential role in influencing the team. They motivate people to accomplish a task and provide a roadmap for followers to focus their activities to achieve a vision or goal. They must be able to motivate the virtual team and provide the leadership and guidance without the face-to-face interaction. So let's focus on the communication style. While the importance of communication and leadership in face-to-face context is well established in literature, understanding of the role of communication for a virtual team leader was found to be limited. The virtual leader, they communicate primarily through IT. They have asynchronous, synchronous, one-to-one, or one-to-many communication avenues. So here we have the research questions that we developed. How does virtual leader communication style influence trust, commitment, and knowledge sharing? How do trust, commitment, and knowledge sharing mediate the relationship between the virtual leader communication style and perceived performance in the virtual team? And what are the dimensions of the virtual leader communication style? Here's the example of the model with the mediators. You can see the first dimension, or the first mediator we have, is knowledge sharing, which is a process that is used to share the experience and knowledge from a group that is dependent on a mixture of expertise. This can occur when people who share a common purpose and experience similar problems come together to share idea or information. Then we have team trust, the willingness of a truster to be vulnerable to the actions of a trustee based on the expectations that the trustee will perform particular action. Sorry about that. Team commitment, the psychological attachment that the members feel for the team. Then we have ultimately the virtual team performance, the combined results of productivity, viability, and personal development, and the three team effectiveness outcome factors: team results, team survivability, and individual satisfaction. So the virtual leader communication style. As I stated before, there's no previous definition of the virtual leader communication style in literature. The VLCS is built upon the research of Norton's communication style, Poltz's e-leadership theory, and Sullivan's motivating language. It consists of 7 subcomponents. Each of the 7 subcomponents is positive communication style in nature and emphasizes a motivating and nurturing action. Here we have the definition that we came up with for the VLCS. It's a positive and supportive social process mediated by IT that emphasizes motivating and nurturing communication that can enhance the emergent states and perceptions of the virtual team. The development of the VLCS was a deep dive into several areas and started mainly with an initial focus on Norton's communication style. As I dug deeper into numerous academic articles, journals, and studies on leader communication and virtual teams, it became very clear as to the lack of research into the virtual leader communication. I saw a distinct pattern of helping and motivating actions from the journals and articles that produce positive impacts on emergent states and emergent behaviors. Incorporating e-leadership and motivating language was a natural progression for the theme of the research. The motivating and nurturing communication skills that impact virtual team was a clear path for me to follow. So here we have the model and the 3 dimensions. You have e-leadership, which is defined as a social influence processes mediated by IT. It's operationalized using constructs of management by results, improving virtual communication, handling virtual meetings and schedules, and providing virtual feedback and support. For the VLCS, we only use 2 of the constructs: improving virtual communication, providing feedback and support. These 2 constructs provide a clear structure on goals, tasks, and expectations with shared goals, mission, and vision. Then we have motivating language. This is defined as a leader's speech that positively affects employees' progress towards improved organizational outcomes. It consists of 3 mutually reinforcing speech acts: direction giving, empathetic, and meaning making language. The VLCS focuses on the components of empathetic language and meaning making language, and leave out direction giving language. Direction giving language is more managerial tasks of giving direction speech that occurs when a boss clarifies a task. Then we have the communication style. This is defined as the way one verbally, non-verbally, and paraverbally communicate to indicate how their meaning should be taken, interpreted, filtered, or understood literally. It consists of 9 sub-dimensions of the communication style. It has animated, attentive, contentious, dominant, dramatic, friendly, impression-leaving, open, and relaxed. For the VLCS, we use 3 of the communication style variables: attentive, open, and friendly. Each of the subdimensions are focused on being positive and supportive and emphasize a motivating and nurturing communication. So on the methodology, it was a quantitative design. I sent out 1,200 surveys to government IT workers. We had 167 usable responses. All the instruments were adapted from previous validated scales. PLS regression was used to test proposed relationships. The measurement model had an internal consistency and reliability. They were all considered. Indicator reliability had a C.R.E. of greater than 0.7. Convergent reliability had the AVE of greater than 0.05. So here we show the actual results from the running the model. Structural equation modeling was accomplished. It was using partial least squares to test the proposed relationships between the variables. What you see highlighted are the most significant path relationships from the 3 dimensions. The value that we found of taking a multidimensional approach to the study of the VLCS is that it provides a more complete understanding of a person's tie to his or her virtual leadership skills. Although all 3 of the dimensions might be related to an individual's tendency to communicate virtually, the nature of that individual's involvement in virtual communication might be quite different depending on which of the 3 dimensions that virtual leader chooses to use or not use. And from the most significant paths, provide feedback and support from the items. You can see provides enough feedback in our performance, provides regular meetings to discuss problems. So it's something easy that we can do. So if you look at the next item, empathetic language shows me encouragement for my work efforts, gives praise for my good work. Very easy items to follow as a leader. And in our last one, friendly communication style. Readily expresses admiration for others, is an extremely open communicator. Very encouraging to people when they communicate. These are easily done by supervisors, common sense things almost. So our findings, here are the findings from our research. Give you a second to look at those. And then here we see that trust is influenced by the VLCS. Very significant findings. All hypotheses were supported. The R-squared for virtual team performance was 0.475, 47.5%, indicating that almost half the variance in the variable is explained by the model. The VLCS explains 18.7% of the variance in knowledge sharing, 13.1% of the variance in trust, and 19.1% of the variance in effective communication. A virtual leader can focus on one of the three dimensions of the VLCS to improve trust, commitment, or knowledge sharing. It's almost like a trifecta where you have, trust influences commitment, knowledge sharing influences trust. It's the VLCS proved very satisfactory. So the VLCS, based on the research findings, a virtual team's performance is positively influenced by the communication style. Furthermore, trust, commitment, and knowledge sharing have a significant mediating effect. As a result, the analysts, all hypotheses were supported, and we have strong statistical support shown between the VL communication style and virtual team performance. For our implications of theory, we have statistical support for the VLCS construct. We support a new theory statistically that shows the VL, a virtual leader who practices a supportive communication style, can vastly affect trust, commitment, knowledge sharing, and ultimately virtual team performance. The measurement model presented in the study shows validity of a new virtual leader communications construct at all three levels of measurement. And our implications to practice. It enables organizations to identify and enhance improved relationships within the supervisory subordinate dyad, provides individuals and organizations with a means to assess and improve factors that should increase virtual team knowledge sharing, trust, commitment, all of which are predictors of performance. Results suggest that the VLCS can improve factors identified in the study, and they may be important areas that may lead to improved virtual team performance. A subordinate who feels a leader through dimensions of VLCS has their best interests at heart and is focused not only on the team, but also on the team individually, they develop an emergent state of commitment. The virtual leader is the conduit in which team members rely to instigate the process of knowledge sharing, which ultimately leads to facilitation of the team reaching the end goal. The virtual leader can promote knowledge sharing through more efficient use of team resources, reducing implementation areas and facilitating virtual team effectiveness. Future research. We only looked at a small point in time. I think a longitudinal study would capture more significant results. It gives a broader picture of the target population and how the VLCS actually impacts. I think if we look at the multicultural look, it would give us a better understanding as well. Different cultures have different cultural communication adaptations. It can impact the VLCS very significantly. We want to incorporate communication richness into the exogenous variable to examine the impact of the VLCS on trust, commitment, and knowledge sharing. The target population that we had for this, it tended to be mostly male and higher education. I think if we look at something that has more diversity into the target population would also be a good examination as well. So Dr. Guzman, if you'd like to take this way and finish up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Belsom, for discussing your research. I want to highlight why this research was good. Well, first of all, as you can see, all the hypotheses were supported, and that is, as you all know, the PhD students, it's hard to accomplish. And that also means that the literature review was well conducted, and then obtaining these hypotheses that are supported and these statistically significant results is good. But also you see how the construct of virtual leadership communication style was not in the literature before. I mean, there was literature on leadership, there was literature on virtual teams, and obviously in the topics related to the mediating variables of knowledge sharing, trust, and commitment. But the virtual leadership communication style, that is the main contribution from Dr. Belsom, where he identified from the literature those 3 dimensions that were operationalized by all these items. And, he provided those examples of these different communication practices that influence the team performance. So all these variables influence the team performance, but we can, thanks to this research, we can identify the ones that are more significant. And I know that things like being friendly or providing the feedback and support and being empathetic, you might think that that's a good practice, but now we have evidence that it's a good practice. And I think it's something that, again, it's a good learning opportunity from a theoretical perspective in terms of building the construct, and also from a practical perspective, because in practice we can use these operationalized items and recommend to leaders to pursue these practices based on evidence. And so we hope and encourage students to build on this research. So, for example, PhD students can use this construct and test the model in different ways, such as using the construct as independent variable or moderating variable in another model, and test the relationship with other variables. And for a DBA, from a DBA perspective, where we do applied research, use these practices again, like in a consulting way, to promote better practices, to encourage improve team performance, and use this in different contexts, different kind of business, different small or medium or large businesses. So there are multiple implications and multiple ideas of the future research that can be done around this topic. So again, it makes me really proud to see our graduates talk about their research and their interesting findings. So I want to thank everyone, and thank Dr. Belsom for discussing again his research, and thank the audience for being here. As I said at the beginning, we will be happy to receive questions, comments, and suggestions. So thank you very much. Daniel?
Okay, great. Great. Thank you, Dr. Guzman. Thank you, Dr. Belsom, for the great presentation. It's great to see such a timely subject matter that brings together theoretical and applied research. And as such, we have a number of questions that have come in already. First question for you, Dr. Belsom, and just to confirm, do we have you online right now? Is your audio working okay?
I'm online. Yeah.
Okay, great. First question for you is, can you share an example of how your research has impacted your day-to-day work?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I find myself not only trying to put it in practice myself of some of the items that we went over, but I notice myself critiquing or talking to other leaders in my organization and kind of mentoring on common practices of doing things. I'm a program manager, and I have one deputy program manager with me, and I find myself actually practicing the things that I discovered in my dissertation, and I have a lot of positive feedback from my deputy, and to a point where the individual is now feeling more confident as a team, and where in the beginning the trust was low, and now we're at a point where our trust and commitment and knowledge sharing together makes us a high performing, productive team.
Great, thank you. And next question for you, Dr. Belsom. This comes from one of your colleagues, and he states, this is very interesting research. Can you speak briefly to the process you used to identify this gap to address?
Yeah, during the literature review, as I stated at the beginning, I started down because I was interested in the communication style of a leader. But then I started looking more at the virtual leadership aspect. Review, I saw the vacuum that was there for virtual leaders, not only in communication style, but holistically for virtual leaders as leaders individually. The literature review was the eye opener. Initially, my chair guided me towards more robust research. I think initially I wanted to go my own route, but then after doing the literature review, I saw more of what was needed.
Great, thank you. And on the topic of literature reviews, and let's start with Dr. Guzman on this one, but then we can get Dr. Belsom's feedback on this as well. But Dr. Guzman, can you share your advice on how to conduct a thorough and effective literature review?
Okay, so that is a good question, and I recommend the person who asked the question and other students also to view our previous core webinar that was about how to conduct a literature review. So it's an extensive topic. So it's a very good question, because the quality of your findings really depend on the quality of your literature review. You know, when your hypotheses are not supported in the PhD program, that's usually a result of the literature review that was not thorough enough. And it is hard because it also depends on the topic. You know, for some topics, you have a very extensive literature review, which is hard to become familiar with, but at the same time, it's consistent one way. On the other hand, in other topics, it's such a new topic and there are just too many points of view. It's hard to combine. So you really kind of guessing at some point. It's like, okay, let's try this. We're doing our best because there is no consistent findings, so we have to try different ways. So it really depends on the topic, but the best practice is to just read a lot and read and write. Right, in any doctoral program, there's a lot of reading and writing and thinking. Look for opportunities to discuss the topic, and that is good to discuss with other doctoral students in conferences and events like that, like even the webinar. But it's really a process, a lot of reading, writing, and try also another important success factor is to find the good literature, you know, credible sources, the good journals and references that you know that have been cited many times or come from top journals. So those are important suggestions to conduct a good literature review.
And Dr. Belsom, given that it seems like your literature review has really set you up for success in your dissertation, do you have any advice you can add to that?
I just have to piggyback on what Dr. Guzman said. You have to do a deep dive into the review process. It'll take you down different rabbit holes, but I think the best advice that I was given by Dr. Shackman, my chair, was to start developing a spreadsheet that you could correlate the different literature reviews that you were doing, and easy to highlight and go to, because you wind up, you may look at three papers in January and you put them aside, and then come back 4 months later, you realize there was something in that article that is useful the way you're going in your research, and you don't have to hunt and find. Everything's right there in a spreadsheet for you, and you just go back down, find it, and I had a link to it where I had it filed, had the subject, the author, and it was just easy to find. Save everything. Don't think that nothing is not useful in your research process.
Great, thank you. And next question, this one's for you, Dr. Belsom, but I do have to share the comment that this person sent. They said they do feel for you the technical difficulties, because they apparently last week they had a presentation to their boss and their internet connection kept going out. So definitely understand that. But you mentioned that you have you published research. How is that something that you came about doing? Because I'm very interested in doing that myself.
That was because I have great support from the Trident faculty. My chair and Dr. Guzman and my other board members all emphasize the need to publish and the benefit to publish something that you spent a large part of your life in doing. I think one has to remember, when you undertake this process, it's a long, arduous process, and it's not to be taken lightly. The work that you do, it sets you up for your future. You become the expert on that subject. So why not publish? Why not put your work out there for others to look at, pick apart, and maybe make better? Your chair and the Trident faculty will help you 150% if that's the route you want to go.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Guzman, do you have anything to add to that? I know you're very active with both students and alumni and helping to guide them towards publishing.
Well, Dr. Belsom said it very nicely. That is certainly good, very encouraging words, and I would like to emphasize again that today's times, things are changing, and it's important to make contributions to knowledge, but now it's even more. It is very competitive, but it's not impossible. And we work hard to make our research relevant and rigorous at Trident. And when our students finish their dissertation, there is a very strong foundation for which you can build and work for publications. So I really just want to encourage everyone, our PhD graduates and DBA or doctoral graduates, to pursue that path, because it helps you, continue building knowledge, but also strengthening your expertise in that area. and it adds credibility to your degree, to the process, to the university, to your career, and it also makes again contributions to the society. You know, you can help more, you can impact people, impact organizations, impact for the good. So those are some of the reasons why it's not an easy process. I mean, you will get papers rejected and not accepted the first time, but then you get good feedback. I mean, it's a process that it's good in academia. It's not easy, but I'm telling you the truth, once it's accepted a paper, that satisfaction is awesome.
Great, thank you. And we have one more question, and just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, we'll have email addresses up at the very tail end of the webinar, but you can also submit your questions in the control panel, the right-hand side of your screen. And we're going to end the Q&A session off with Dr. Belsom. And given all the changes and upheaval in the workforce this year, have you seen that the study of virtual leadership has increased in popularity?
Oh yeah, by far. I manage in my program the education and development of over 1,000 acquisition personnel, and I have to find training and education to not only hone the acquisition skills, but the leadership skills of our acquisition force as well. And one large portion of that training this year was virtual leadership. Virtual leaders, as I stated in my presentation, they have to contend with managerial issues differently than what they do in face-to-face interactions. You have to build that trust in individuals. You have to have that knowledge sharing. It's the trifecta of knowledge sharing, trust, and commitment. It's been a highlight of a lot of people who want to learn how to navigate these choppy waters that we're in now.
And we have time for just one more question. And this one, again, this one's for you, Dr. Belsom, and can pass it off to Dr. Guzman as well. But looking at this from an applied perspective, how can a virtual leader make an impact with direct reports whom they have never met in person before?
I think just by some of the items in my research were very practical. By just setting up normal times to contact an individual, to reach out to that individual, to have that empathetic language. You don't have to see them to understand what they're going through or their needs. A virtual leader has to cope with the same problems, but through our IT mediation. And it's not impossible. It's just a new way of doing things. You have to slow down, take a look at your environment that you're in now, and follow different processes. It's almost, when you look at the items, it's almost too easy. When you look at them, it's almost too practical. You're thinking, wow, I can do that, I should do that. Like I mentioned in the presentation, my current boss does all the things that I have researched, and I have never talked to her previously until I finished my dissertation about the items and what we're doing. I tell her all the time that she's the epitome of my research, and it feels good because I see how productive our team is.
And anything to add to that, Dr. Guzman?
I just want to emphasize on the dissertation that it's available in the in ProQuest, and obviously in the future it's going to be in the journal. But you have there very important variables. He kind of took the good ingredients, right? The knowledge sharing, trust, commitment, the team commitment, and then among those specific communication practices, we have the being friendly, encouraging, you know, being providing the feedback. It's important. People want to know how they're doing, and being empathetic. You know, we all want attention. So those are very good ingredients for a successful team performance.
Okay. Great advice. Great way to end the Q&A session. And thank you everyone for coming. And I'm going to hand things off to Dr. Guzman so we can close out tonight's webinar.
Okay, thank you very much to the audience for the great questions, comments. Thank you for attending and participating in today's C.O.R.E webinar, Virtual Leadership from Theoretical and Applied Perspectives. Please visit the C.O.R.E webpage to learn about all the different webinars that are there recorded. It has been recently updated, so you will have access to all these recordings. Recent C.O.R.E webinars mentioned were the one on qualitative research methods and the one on the literature review. So I really I would like to invite you to visit the website and watch those videos. We like to invite our doctoral students to be part of these webinars, our alumni like Dr. Belsom, and obviously also our faculty. Feel free to contact us to participate in future webinars as well. Finally, I want to give a very special thanks to Dr. Belsom. And thank you for your participation, interest. Let's continue collaborating and building knowledge. If you would like to reach out to us, our contact information is now in the screen. Goodbye and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.